Hi y'all, thank you for coming to my channel. It's Kimberly here. Well, this morning I woke up and I decided to get a kolache, which is it's a meat, not a pastry. There are kolache pastries, but it's got like a little, like a hot dog type of bread on the outside. They make it with soft bread, and then they put like a hot dog wing. I already took a bite out of it. I'm so hungry. And I forgot to heat it up. I usually like to heat it up. They're really good when you heat them up. But, yeah, lipstick on it. I usually, like to heat them up, and they're really good in the morning. I usually don't make a lot of morning videos because I work, but I've been off work for a couple weeks. So that's why I made some morning. I have made them, but I don't know. I don't think I posted them in the morning, not because I usually post my videos later in the day. But that's the reason if they've been coming earlier. But I'll be going back to work next week, which I'm still kind of, my mind is still kind of shook on this, that I got a text from my boss early yesterday morning accusing the entire crew of being high at work, and somebody had told her this, and it was about 2 pages long, and the more and more I read it, I was livid. I was so pissed. I was just, because I don't do any type of substance. I don't even drink alcohol. I don't like cigarettes. I'm just a very boring, dull person. And I took great offense to it, and I wrote up this really nasty text, and because she threatened her job in it, and I can't believe this, and I thought it was a little unprofessional to blanketly accuse everybody on the word of somebody who probably she worded it in a way that she wasn't going to drug test, because whatever you do on your time off, she isn't concerned about. But yet, at the end of the text, throughout it, she was like concerned for her job, and kind of upset about it, and then kind of threatening to fire the entire crew and start over, which I was like, what the hell, So I wrote out this nasty text, and thank goodness I didn't send it. And I had to stop for about an hour or two, and my mind was just, when I get accused of something I don't do, it really pisses me off. It's really unsettling to me, especially if it's something against my character. Then it really does make me upset. And I thought about it for a while, and then I rewrote the text. I took a lot out, sent it back, and then I did get a text back, oh, I believe you, and such, not pertaining to me, but that practically everybody else was. And I don't know. I really don't know if that's true or not. I did have an incident with a temporary employee that I thought was in an altered state, and I did tell another employee that this person was complaining about, and I went and told this person, hey, there's something going on, and they're going to complain about you. And it was an issue where this person didn't want to be told he was older, and he did not want to be told what to do by a younger person, I think. And he really wasn't our boss, even though our boss would direct this person to sometimes delegate some of her authority not his authority. He didn't have any authority, but would delegate some things because she does work in different areas, which I have no issue with that. I don't care how old somebody is, and I don't care, if it's a young person, tell me, or a really, really old person, I don't care. It doesn't matter. The age doesn't matter to me. As long as I know it's a direction from the boss and they're giving, me the delegating from the boss, I don't care, I just came there to do my job. And so I have had an incident there, and that person was tested and immediately fired. And no, actually, they refused the test, so they were fired for that. And I suggested that anybody who's complained about me, you should definitely test them. Because I was just so pissed off and taken aback. Anyway, that did happen. And I'll be going back to work next week. Thank goodness. I made a text. I can't talk today. I don't know. My mind is still a little rattled about that. But I made a video, I think it was yesterday. My memory is so horrible, I can't remember stuff. And I talked about the flooding that was going on. And I didn't mean to construe that like our houses were floating off the foundation. I know that picture I took of my backyard looked a little scary. It was up to I have a single step porch, and it came up to the porch, and I was standing on the porch when I took the picture, and it was, right level with the porch. Another half an inch and it would have flooded over the porch. Another couple inches, it probably would have came into my kitchen. But I wasn't really too worried about it. My backyard is kind of, it kind of dips down where the dogs have just run, the middle of it. It's a small backyard, and they just have made holes in the middle part, and the dirt around the fence, they push some of the dirt up around the fence, so it makes the water like pool up in the backyard like that. The front yard really wasn't flooded that much. There was like little pockets of water, but my front yard is a little bit elevated. I guess the dirt and the grass are kind of elevated. And the water was coming up to the curb and over the curb, so it was coming like an inch into my yard, a couple inches maybe into my yard around the curb, but it's so elevated, it really didn't. There's no way it could get into my to the front of my house. But the streets were flooded. There was flooding in the park, and there was, there are parts that the city, it was somewhat flooded around the streets, but it did. I don't think it got into probably anybody's house, except there is a lower end. There may have been a few houses that might have gotten some water in their houses, and they do have this little lower, it's just a little part of the city, and it kind of goes down. There's a few more houses, or a few more blocks with houses down there, and there is a little man-made lake there, but it's very small, like, I don't know, like 100 feet by 100 feet, and if that did flood, I didn't go down there in that area. It kind of does flood a little bit, so I really don't know about that part, because I just didn't go down there. I knew I wouldn't be able to pass over. Probably there's one or two roads down there. I probably wouldn't. I don't want to chance it, I don't want to, even though I have a truck, I'm not gonna, I don't want to damage my truck or anything like that. And in the city, the larger city I lived close to, there was probably flooding there, and I think I did explain that the drainage system there is not very not equipped to handle like massive flooding. We live in a super dry area, so we rarely get these kind of rains. Like the kind of rain that we've been getting the past month is kind of comparable like the winter that we had, because I think we've got more rain in this month than we have probably in a total of, a whole year, in several years where we've had droughts. And I'm sure some of the houses there probably got a little bit of flood water in them from the playa lakes. Some of the houses that live close to there, if they're not on a high foundation, then some of that water, there's certain houses that I know, and I would never buy these houses, and I would not buy a house. There's a whole row of houses that I know of that are in front of this one lake that is kind of low, and they're nice houses, and I would never have purchased, especially this one corner house. And I've seen them having to put the sandbags around that house and around the door and all that. I never would have bought that house. And it's on such a low, I mean, it's not elevated at all. I mean, it probably has like a 2 or 3 inch step, and then you go in the front door. And there's several areas around the city that are like that are close to these playa lakes, that the houses around that are very close to the lake, they do get flooded sometimes, and the water does go in their houses. And the streets around there do get underwater, and you can get stuck or damage your car if you try to go through them. Happens every year. And there's several businesses that have parking lots that have these dips in them that are probably, like, I think at one, there's a mall that there's a dip in the parking lot that's about 10 feet deep. And they do get cars that get people that either don't know that it's, dangerous in that area right there to go through that part of the parking lot, or they usually have a marker or they try to block it off or something. But there's one year that this guy had a really nice truck. This was like it was about 20 years ago, I think. And we had a very hard rain. It's one of the first hard rains that we had that, sorry, I blew a bubble on my face. It's one of the first times we had a really hard rain that flooded the city that much. That I remember there was a little bit of a flood when I was very young. I was like, I don't know, 5 or 6, or I had to be under 7 years old. I don't really remember. And I kind of remember being in the car and being scared because my mom was trying to go through some water, and the car died. And amazingly, I think somebody pushed us out of it or something, and then the car started back up. And I do remember her trying to get around, and it was flooded. And then, years later, we did have this one big flood, and this guy drove his brand new, or maybe not brand new, but it was still a nice truck, drove it into that deep water. It was about 10 feet deep, and he had just put a $10,000 stereo system in it. And he was on top of it. He got out, he got on the roof, and somebody was taking pictures of it, and he ended up like on the front page or something of the newspaper. And at that time, this is pre-cell phone, not a whole lot of internet use. So if you were on the front page back then, I mean, the whole city knew about it, and I think it might have been picked up. I think it was picked up by a couple of other places. They did post a picture of it in their papers on the wire service, I don't know if it made national news, but I remember, I mean, it was a pretty big deal. And then a couple of years later, I was working a temp job, and I was talking to this guy, and he goes, we started talking about something. I don't know how I ended up in the conversation like that, but he goes, yeah, I'm that fool that drove my truck into the parking lot and had to get on top of my truck. So I ended up working with that guy. But he got out okay. They got him out. But he said it ruined his truck and it ruined his stereo system and all that. So we usually don't have like real horrible massive flooding where you have to get in a boat in the street, to, drive, be in a boat to travel around. Nothing like that. The water doesn't reach up to the roofs of the house because we're in such a elevated, I guess. I think we're either in such a higher elevation, and we just don't get a lot of flooding, and we don't have massive floods because we don't have lakes and rivers around here. We do have a few like little city playa lakes, and that does flood into some of the houses. But we do have one lake, a boating and a fishing lake it's man-made, but it's in a canyon, and I think it's about 10 miles from the city. And it's so deep in a canyon, it would have to flood like at least 50 or 100 feet for it to travel off. I mean, the whole city would have to be flooded. I mean, it's just not going to happen. We live in such a dry area, such elevation, and we have so much drought here a lot. And so there's no huge concern, houses being pushed off and people drowning or stuff like that. If you do drown here, it's because you went into deep water, and you shouldn't have done that. And I don't think uh, I don't know that we've ever had anybody drown from a flood here, other than, like I say, driving into a lake or something like that. I don't know. It's not something that happens here. And so my backyard looked really kind of scary, but it didn't get in the house. There's no way it would. And unless, like I say, if it would have rained 3 or 4, maybe 5 more inches, maybe it would have went in the house. But that would have been a major flood. So when it floods here, it pulls up so quickly, and then eventually it does go away. And today it's like there's not like a whole lot of water, standing water. The park it's still got water in it. There's still like a pools of water in the lower parts, and there's still water at the intersections, a little bit, not that bad. And haven't been to the drive-through at McDonald's like I did yesterday, but I think most of it's probably dried up there. That area, the back end of the parking lot where you go through the drive-through, it was pretty deep there. It was coming up to almost to or you saw the car in front of me. It was almost up to their door. And my truck is a little bit higher than that car, so it's like a few inches, and thank goodness it wasn't enough to get in my truck. I didn't really worry too much about it. But I think a little bit further where the trash cans were, if I would have driven back that way, it might have gotten into my truck, I think. But not a lot of worry. And it would just have to be a massive, major flood for anything like that to happen. And the lake that is the big, huge lake in the crater would have to be, it would have to flood. There's houses around that lake because it's a recreational place. People bought lots and put little mobile homes or built little houses. And I think there's a few houses that were pretty close. And a couple of times I think maybe they did get flooded. But most of them are up to a level and they're built up. Some people put them on blocks, or have a foundation that's tall enough, because it's built kind of on sides of the canyon, and it kind of is kind of goes up, elevates, and so there's winding roads up there, so the houses are mostly elevated, so there's not like a whole lot of concern about them either. And further down the canyon, there are like multi-million-dollar homes. They're beautiful, beautiful houses, and they'll never get flooded. There may be flooding on some of the roads going in and out, so they can get into the city or whatever. But there is a road that goes into the entrance of the lake that it does flood, and sometimes people can't get out of that canyon. They have to take a back road if they can get through the back roads, which are usually flooded too. And that has happened a couple of times where people have been trapped in there, couldn't go to work, because the water was so deep, trying to get across. Because there's a point where you go into it, and it dips down and comes back up, way back up. But other than that, everything is okay here. We don't have like I say, flooding up to the roofs and people getting into boats and having to rescue people. That doesn't happen here. It's just the major problem is making sure that people are not driving into deep water in parking lots and across from these little playa lakes. It does flood into the street, and it's enough to pick your car up, and it can wash you out. Or if you live in the country, some of the bar ditches get full of water, and some of the intersections out in the country, they will get flooded, and you have to be careful about that, because it will flood and it'll push your car off into the ditch, and you'll end up maybe floating over into the cotton field or something like that. But other than that, everything it's getting a little bit more dried out, except for the fact that I think there's like gray clouds over my shoulder, and there is more rain expected for today and maybe a couple more days. We're going to have a little bit more rain too. I'm not sure about that, but well, thank you all, and I'm just updating you on that, because that did look a little bit scary. I guess that photo did. But my backyard is just a very it's very small, It's not the full backyard. I just built a fence in a certain area so my dogs could have a place. And it just looks that way, but it did not get into my house. But thank you all, and I hope y'all have a good day.